What's going on, Internet? Lou here, and I'm back bringing you guys another tutorial. I'm going to be showing you guys how to install the Linux Mint Gnome-Shell Extensions, which will be featured in the next major release of Linux Mint, which will be Linux Mint 12, codenamed Lisa. Now, these extensions were created by the Mint team to offer a very unique, customized Gnome-Shell experience. Now, as many of you know already, I'm a big Gnome-Shell fan. I love what we already have in Gnome-Shell, and what's exciting is the possibilities of what we could have in Gnome-Shell going on into the future. These shell extensions are just a very basic example of the power of Gnome-Shell. I find it interesting that there's a lot of people criticizing Gnome-Shell for not being customizable, when these very simple Java extensions make it basically limitless as far as customization is concerned. But because Gnome-Shell is very early in its infancy here, we don't have a lot of them out in the wild. But with distributions like Linux Mint and even OpenSUSE that's offering some of these extensions already, you're going to see the customization of Gnome-Shell go crazy. Mark my words. So today I'm going to show you guys how to install, I think there's 8, 9, maybe even 10 of these extensions, and all of them do some really unique things. I'm going to be showcasing 2 of them specifically. One of them's a media player extension that is integrated with, I think, 3 or 4 different media players. Some of them, it's partial functionality. Some of these are fully featured. For instance, Banshee is one of the fully supported media players for this particular extension. Banshee happens to also be my favorite media player in Linux. So I'm going to be showing you guys that extension today, as well as there's going to be a shutdown extension. One of the biggest gripes about Gnome-Shell, especially when people first installed it, was how the heck do you shut down your computer? Because when you go up into the menu here in the upper right hand corner, you can see shutdown. Now, that's because I have this extension installed. Normally, right here, it says suspend. So, for those of you who've never used Gnome-Shell and don't know, in order for you to power off your machine from that menu, what you have to do is hold the Alt button down on your keyboard, and then it will reveal the power off option. So, this extension allows shutdown to be there by default. So, if you don't like having to hold down the Alt button, you can install this extension, and you can be on your way. Now, I'm going to be including in a blog post in the video description below all of the commands and packages you're going to need to accomplish what we're doing here today. So don't worry about having to quickly, type everything that I'm typing in terminal. You can just open up that blog post in another web browser tab and follow along that way, and just copy and paste if you'd like. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, I've been asked what application I used in one of my videos to display the text that I type on the screen. Now, I received a few different messages about this, and the name of the application is called ScreenKey. It's available in the Ubuntu repos. However, Fedora, it is not available. So what I had to do is I had to go to the Launchpad site for ScreenKey, download the source code, and compile it from source. Now, that sounds like a really geeky thing to do, but it's actually not that hard. So I'm using the application ScreenKey, and if it becomes a popular enough demand, I will show you guys how to compile that from source and install it in Fedora. So anyway, let's get started. If you go again to that blog post, you're going to find instructions on how to install Git in GNOME Tweak Tool. Now, if you already have these installed, wait till we get to step 2 and you'll be all set. If not, I'm going to show you how to install those now. So we're simply going to open up terminal and type in sudo yum-y install git-core and GNOME Tweak Tool. Now hit enter. It's going to prompt you for your password, so go ahead and supply your password. I already have this installed, so it's going to tell me that there's nothing to do. Now, if you don't have this installed, it's going to run through a list of dependencies. It'll prompt you, do you want to install this? You're just going to hit enter, and that's it. You'll be done. So once that's done, what we need to do now is we need to clone the Linux Mint Gnome-Shell extension Git repository. Okay. So before I do that, let me start off by saying, when you're searching for extensions in the wild, you're going to probably find quite a few of them. It's important to note, however, you need to install extensions that are compatible with the version of GNOME Shell that you're running. If you're not sure what version of GNOME Shell you're running, I'm going to show you how to find that. Come over here to the upper right hand corner, select System Settings, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and select System Info. Right here it's going to display what version of GNOME you're running, 3.2.1. So as long as you're running at least 3.2, you need to know that the extensions we have to install today have to be compatible with 3.2. I'm also going to show you how to find out if those extensions were developed incompatible with GNOME Shell 3.2. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to clone the Linux Mint Git repository. So to make this very simple, simply go to step number 2 in the blog post and copy and paste what I have highlighted there in bold and italicized. Now, to paste it here into the terminal, just right-click, hit paste, and then hit enter. It's going to say cloning into MGSE. MGSE is short for Mint Gnome-Shell Extensions. Now, these extensions are not very big files, so it's only going to take literally seconds to clone this particular Git repository. Now, once this Git repository is cloned, what I want you to do is open up Nautilus. Once Nautilus is open, I want you to go to your keyboard and press the Control button and then hit the T button. Once you've done that, it's going to open up a new tab within Nautilus. This is very similar to opening up a new tab within your web browser. Once you open up that tab, what I'd like you to do is I want you to press Control and then H. Control and H is going to display all of the hidden files and folders within your home directory. So leave that there for right now and go back over to this other home tab that's open. You're going to notice MGSE, this folder right here. That's your Mint Gnome-Shell extension folder. This is what we got after we cloned the Mint Gnome-Shell extension Git repository. Go inside that folder. Now you're going to notice inside this folder there's all of these extensions. What do we got here? 3, 6, 9. We have 11 extensions that we have here. Each of these, I'm not going to go through what each one of these does, but some of these are pretty cool. For those of you who miss having a bottom panel and miss having a list of whatever windows representing whatever applications you have open, remember that in GNOME 2 you'd have that bottom panel with a list of applications that are open. You can have that again, and the extensions are in here. And the Linux Mint team put that together, so you can go ahead and stop by their forums and say, thanks for being awesome, because they're going to, provide that functionality to you guys who maybe missed that from GNOME 2. Now again, the extensions I'm going to show you today are the Media, the Banshee extension, and the Shutdown extension. So first I want to show you how to know if the particular extension that you downloaded is compatible with your version of GNOME Shell. So let's go into the MGSE-Media Player folder here. Go into User, Share, GNOME Shell, and then Extensions. Now here's the actual file folder for this extension. Open that up. Right over here you're going to see a file that's called metadata.json. Open that. Once you open this JSON file, it's going to give you all sorts of information. But right over here is what we're looking for. Shell version 3.2. Also, it tells you what players this extension can control. Clementine, MPD, Banshee, Rhythmbox, Rhythmbox 3, Praga, Quadlibet. Oh, okay. A couple other ones. Amarok, Google Music Frame, XBMC, so on and so forth. So just know that Banshee is fully supported by this. If any of you use Banshee, especially if you're in Fedora, actually no, Fedora uses Rhythmbox by default. I usually uninstall that and put Banshee in, but if you're in an Ubuntu distribution, you're going to get Banshee, and it'll be fully supported by this particular extension. So, we know that we're compatible, so we're going to move forward. Now, I want you to back up a couple of directories and go back to the MGSE, the root of the MGSE folder. Now, figure out what extension that you're going to want. Now, again, I'm going to want the MGSE Media Player. So we're going to, one more time, I'm going to show you how to do it. Open up that particular folder and then go to User, Share, Gnome-Shell Extensions. And hold that, keep it right there. Next, what we want to do is come back to this other tab here that says Home and scroll down to the directory that says .local. Within .local, we're going to go to Share, Gnome-Shell, extensions, and then here is our extensions directory. Now, installing an extension is as simple as grabbing this extension folder and then dragging and dropping it in this extensions directory right here. That's all there is to it. So once you do that, drag and drop it in, and that's all there is to it. Now, you can do that for all 11 of those extensions if you'd like. Now, one point to note, if we go back to the MGSE directory, when we see all of the extensions that we have, let's go to Smart Overview. Now, when we go into User, Share, you're going to see the same Gnome-Shell and then extensions directory with the Gnome-Shell extension right here. Now, back up though. Go back into User, Share. See where it says glib 2.0? If your extension may require a file in the glib 2.0 schemas directory. Now, if that's the case, there's going to be one more step. So you can do this through the command line, but for those of you that are watching this video, if you're watching this video, you're most likely not that comfortable with the command line. So I'm going to show you how to do this using a graphical user interface. So the next step is we're going to be opening up a root Nautilus session. So the way that we do that using a graphical user interface is we're going to type sudo Nautilus, and then we're going to hit enter. It's going to prompt you for your password. And just a disclaimer, be very careful when you're doing this, okay? Because you can, it'll give you access to basically delete really important files, and you want to make sure you don't do that. So handle with care, and that is Lou's disclaimer. So basically, we're going to need to find that particular directory to drop this XML file in. You do that by going to File System here on the left, then going to User, Share. Once this is open, simply type glib. It's going to bring you right down here to the glib 2.0 directory. Open that, and again, this should look familiar. There's schemas. Here's all of the XML files. Now all you have to do, if your extension requires this schemas XML file, drag it from here, drop it in, and you're done. Okay? So that's important to note, because without doing that, you may limit the functionality, or even you may prevent that particular extension from working, period. So make sure you copy that file to that particular directory if it exists. Okay? So at this point, what we need to do is we need to restart the shell for this to go into effect. So we can do this a few ways. You can do this via the terminal. And again, guys, I encourage you to really start using the terminal. I know when people talk about Linux, they think that the only thing, the only way you can navigate or get anything done is through a terminal window. And that's obviously not the case. However, it is a ridiculously powerful tool, and I really encourage you to get comfortable with the terminal, because there's a ton of stuff you can accomplish within a terminal window. And it's a lot easier in many cases, believe it or not, than using a GUI tool. So please, just open up a terminal window and start using it and get comfortable with it. You're only going to thank me later. So let's try to do this using a terminal. You're going to do it using a terminal by typing gnome. Actually, you know what? Let's get that started again. Type gnome-shell and then -- replace. You're going to hit enter. That'll restart the GNOME shell. Okay, I'm not going to do it now because it tends to mess up my screencast, but that's how you would do it using a terminal. You could also just come right up here to your top right hand corner, open up this menu, and then hit log out. That'll accomplish the same thing, and then log back in again. Or you can hold down the Alt key, then hit F2. That's going to open up a run command. When that run command opens, simply type R and then hit enter. That'll also restart the shell. So once the shell is then restarted, we're going to make sure and verify that our extensions are installed properly. The way that we do that, in fact, the way that we enable them, as well as check to see if they're installed properly, is by opening up GNOME Tweak Tool. Once you open up GNOME Tweak Tool, over here in the left-hand pane, you're going to see shell extensions. Click on that. Now you're going to notice right over here on the right-hand side it's going to say shutdown menu extension, and I have it toggled to on, or media player extension. I also have that toggled to on. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate both of these extensions for you now. So let's do the media player extension first. So if I go ahead and open up Banshee, and I'm going to minimize that before it displays any cover art, and people yell at me for displaying that cover art on my YouTube channel. And you're going to notice right up here in the top panel, it displays this little music note. When you click that note, it's going to now give you this nice, really slick, you got to admit that looks really good, this really slick dialogue right here. If your particular artist has some cover art, it'll display it. It'll show the artist name, the album name, the song title, the total length of the song, the elapsed time, and then all your controls. This little button here will actually, if you have Banshee minimized, it will bring the Banshee application to the forefront and allow you to then navigate to any album or artist or song that you want to. So really slick. What I like about this is oftentimes if you install a third-party application, especially if this application is supposed to give you some sort of core functionality, it always feels like, at least to me, that third-party application doesn't really fit in with the rest of the operating system very well. It kind of looks a little bit odd. It may look a little bit out of place. Now again, I hate to keep coming back to aesthetic, but for me, using a computer, we do call these PCs, right? Personal computers. It's an experience. I'm huge on user experience. Maybe it comes from my Mac background, and really, Apple does a phenomenal job with, in my opinion, with the user experience. I really appreciate a good user experience. And that, again, goes into kind of how fluid your whole desktop experience feels. And this extension looks amazing. I really hope that in the next iteration of GNOME we see something like this integrated by default, or I hope that we've got distributions like Linux Mint who are going to include that out of the box, because I think this looks really slick and I like it a lot. So this media player extension is awesome. Really like it. I think it enhances your desktop experience, it adds some more functionality, and it looks great. So I really like that. Now the next extension I'm going to show you is one of the biggest gripes about Gnome-Shell when it first came out, and one of the first things people noticed is, okay, so you maybe installed Fedora 15 and you're done playing around with your new desktop and you want to go ahead and shut off your computer. Well, you'd come up here to the upper right hand corner and you'd go to shutdown, but unfortunately what would be displayed over here would be suspend. And you'd be left scratching your head. So then you'd go over and hit the hardware button to power off your computer, which we don't really like to do, and wonder how the heck do you do something as simple as shut down your computer. Later you come to find out that you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, and then it will display, it'll go from suspend to now it'll say power off. And that's how you would shut down the computer. This little extension adds shutdown here by default. So if that was something that annoyed you, you can install this extension and add shutdown by default. So those are two very simple Gnome-Shell extensions. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. I find it quite interesting that a lot of people criticize Gnome-Shell about not being customizable, when if you really understand how Gnome-Shell is put together, the customization of Gnome-Shell is actually limitless. These are, very simple Java codes that coding that's put together to make these extensions, and it's not very difficult. The reason why we don't see a lot of customization is, obviously number one, it wasn't included out of this particular iteration out of the box, because again, Gnome-Shell is still in its infancy, and two, again, the project's brand new. There's a lot of things that were done over the years to the GNOME 2 series that took some time for GNOME 2 to develop and mature. Mark my words, you're going to see some amazing desktop innovations included with these Gnome-Shell extensions, and they're going to become extremely common going more into the future. But again, early stages like this, we see a handful of them that are out there, but mark my words, there are going to be some really, really amazing extensions that are going to do some wild things on the Gnome-Shell desktop. So, again, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If you can do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up, give it a favorite, share the video on Twitter. The same thing with my blog. If there's an option under each blog post to give it a +1 for Google+, share it on Twitter, post it on Facebook. If you guys can do me a favor and support me that way, I'm really trying to get these videos out to the masses so, I can help as many people as possible. And by you guys supporting me in that way, it really helps, because the more likes the video gets, the more it's going to come up in searches when people go onto YouTube. And, again, I put time into these videos. This is probably like the 8th or 9th take due to some technical difficulties. Or just me messing up. So when you include render time, it could be a couple hours for a video of this length. And, I really enjoy it. I love all the feedback I'm getting for you guys, and it's all been really positive. So, if you could do me that quick favor, it just takes a second to hit the like button, even favorite the video. That'd be phenomenal. But until next time, guys, it is Lou, and we'll see you later.